Good morning, everybody. We're returning to the Yorkshire Wolds again, going from Fridaythorpe to Thixendale across country. Fridaythorpe, I guess a lot of people drive through it if you're going on the A166. That's the road that goes off from York and goes through Stamford Bridge, up Garraby Hill, and you can head towards, I guess, Driffield and Bridlington as well. So it's roughly sort of halfway between those. I think it's about 20 miles to York, 21, 22 to Bridlington or something like that. It's just really a village on the bend in the road. And I'd always passed through it like everybody else had done and not noticed that there was anything particularly there. But the village itself is just off the bend in the road. It's sort of slightly hidden away, and it's actually very nice around there. Oddly, on this one is that when I've done the film from the car, I've actually come from the Sledmere side. So let's just have a quick look at these maps to begin with of where I'm talking about. Here we are. Here, the turquoise line going up here is the Wolds Way, and that's where I've been walking along. So York is off here 20 miles away, and it's 21 miles to Bridlington over here. And this is the main road that goes up Garraby Hill, Fridaythorpe, Wetwang. But you notice here there's a junction as well. This is the minor road that comes down to a roundabout where it meets the Moulton Road that goes across to Beverley. And there's actually a little railway siding there. There's not, I think the track only runs for a couple of 100 yards as well down the side there. But that little road going down there, that's the road that goes over to Sledmere. And that's where my car's coming up from this time, coming up this way. Normally I'd have come along the main road and then gone in, but I think I was recording a number of these things last May with my car all the way around the Wolds. And so I've actually came up from this road. So that's where I'm coming up from when I show you the bit of film, and then coming into the village here. There's a road down to Thixendale from Fridaythorpe, probably best on this next one, if you can see it. No, it's not. It's this minor road here that goes down to Thixendale itself. There's another road that comes off the village, and that goes down to a place called Burbberdale, which is a bit further on this road from Thixendale. And quite often people drive down there, then come up here to go to Warren Percy over there. So that's where Burbberdale is. It's more, there's nothing really there, but it's, I'll probably show it on Wednesday. It's got a bit of a railway that came across here from Beverley across to York as well. And there's a rather large quarry there as well. So that's sort of the area I'm going to. And like I say, you can drive down. It's about 3.5 miles in your car down to Thixendale. But if you're walking it, it's around about 4.5 miles. So you can see on this map, I'm setting off over here near where the church is. And I'll have to show you where that is, because I'd seen photographs of it, but it's hidden away down behind some houses, and it really can't be seen at all unless you know where it is. So I'm coming along here, coming down this first dale here called Burbberdale, which is absolutely fantastic, lovely, coming up again out of Burbberdale and then dropping down into the dale that's actually called Thixendale, or people call it Thixendale Wolds. I'm coming down there. The dales keep changing its names, and when I get to it, I'll say that what it changes its name to. But in the bottom down here, it's actually Thixendale. Walking up here to the road that leads into Thixendale. This is the road that leads down, I'd say from the top of Garraby Hill, you can turn left, and it's the Roman road that goes across to Moulton there. And if people know the area, it's where you take a right-hand turn to Thixendale and to the Robert Fuller Gallery. And I'll show him. His gallery is about really where that green dot is, approximately around there. So coming along the road, and this is the road here, as you can see, that comes down from Fridaythorpe into Thixendale. This is the other road that comes off the A166, the main road, and they all meet at the same place, really at the head of where the village is. So I'm coming just there to the end of the village today. So that's as far as I'm going. Like I say, it's about 4.5 miles on foot, but it's really the sort of a hidden area that you don't see. It's actually fantastic Wolds scenery around here as well. I'd say it's probably the best Wolds scenery in actually seeing these two fantastic valleys that you can't see anywhere else. Just a reminder that it is all chalk around here, the chalk hills, the most northerly in Britain. The curve round from really the Humber Bridge, coming round to Flamborough Head and the cliffs there, laid down over a 30 million period, around about 65 million years ago. And because these valleys were created with the meltwater from the glacier that laid on top of this whole area. And I think it must have been a fantastic, probably just stood up on the side of this hill to see this water come down here and, I don't say gouge out, but wash out these valleys. And there are all sorts of valleys. There's a little side valley up there, and it swirls around all over the place. Because the amount of water to do it, but obviously chalk doesn't hold the water, and it just drains away straight away. So that's the sort of the geology which I've mentioned a few times before. And so let's set off. This is a map which I don't normally use, but it's from the National Trails website, where there are a number of these long distance walks on it, the Cleveland Ways on it as well, and the Pennine Way. So there's three of the National Trails in Yorkshire as part of those in Britain. The National Trails, their sort of emblem is an acorn, and those sort of acorns you can see along the route as well, and they give these sort of distance indicators from the Humber Bridge and how far it is to Filey. That's where the Wolds Way ends, at 79 miles in total. So I'm going to set off just here. And this is where a cafe is, and then come along the A166 and come off this junction here, or not a junction, but off this corner. If you're coming in from York, you'd come in here, round the first corner, and then it's the second corner. This is where the village pond is, that's where the village church is, and then the footpath goes straight forward. This property here is a mill called ABN. They're tracks for their huge lorries which will come along here. It's animal feeds that they do there, come along this track here. It's rather hidden, but if you're coming on the main road, you can actually see where it is. So let's set off really just over here, because that's where I'll be driving up in the car as well. So this is Seaways Cafe. It's only notable really because it's a meeting point for motorcyclists, and I guess it's part of a number of places that we find across sort of Yorkshire where people head for. Helmsley is another one, and because that's what it's notable here. Always busy, only largely with motorcyclists. It sits in the triangle of lands. That's the road that goes down to Sledmere. The other side is the A166 that goes off to Driffield and Bridlington. So it's in that sort of a triangle of land around there. I'm going to say it's popular, always open, and surprisingly that Fridaythorpe has such a facility. It has another one as well. The population is around about 300 for the village as well. The other picture I've taken was just off there. The Sledmere Road just goes off there. That's where Seaways is. It's also had a petrol station. It had a sort of a garage here as well, but that's been turned into a small Mace supermarket. So I could say for a village with not much else going for it, it's actually got quite a few things. I guess because it's at the sort of junction of the Sledmere and the Bridlington roads. So if I turn around and go into the village itself, this is the main road on here, and that's where you come off the corner into the village centre. This is a pub that was called the Farmer's Arms. I took this photograph in 2016. I think it might have just have closed at that time, and certainly this was taken in September of last year. Nothing's really happened to it, although the second time I went here is that behind it some men were working on, which looks like they had sort of bungalows behind it, so whether anything's going to happen to that or not, I don't know. But if we move forwards into the village centre, which is this there, which has a huge green in there, but the first thing you see is this thing called a bus shelter, and this was placed here in 2015. They were putting sort of artworks along the Wolds Way, and there was actually an old bus shelter here, which for the normal buses, but they decided is that they'll build a much more substantial structure, not just for people to catch the bus, there's a bus sign there, but for people who come on the Wolds Way, because this is actually the halfway point. Give or take half a mile. It's a halfway point is actually half a mile further on. And so that's what we have here. That's what was placed there. Quite a nice sort of architectural structure. The other side, which you just can't see in the summer photograph there, looks onto the village pond. Sorry, this is a photograph I've taken at another period of time in 2016. So you can see is that there's a village pond here today, but there was actually another pond higher up, because it's not a natural pond because it's chalk up here, so it had to be clay lined as well. The interconnecting pond further up, that was infilled in 1970 in order to put in a football pitch. There were some sort of facilities there for young people around here. One notable event that actually occurred here regarding the water as well was what was called the Battle of Fimber. Is that Fimber's just down the road from Seaways Cafe. That's where that little railway, steam railway junction is. Like I say, I think the railway engines go about 100 yards, then reverse 100 yards, and that's about it at the moment. So I guess they hope to expand that as well. And in 1826, is that the pond dried up here and the people of Fridaythorpe had to go to the next nearest source of water, and that was at Fimber, which is sort of halfway down the hill. But it ended up because obviously the people of Fimber didn't want the people of Fridaythorpe to take their water because it was a drought year and they'd lose all their water. Anyway, there were a bit of a battle going on. The people of Fridaythorpe repulsed and the battle was over, but with no deaths. Because it's a big farming agricultural area around here, and it's rather sort of wheat and other things, as we'll see later on, because I spoke to a farmer near the Thixendale Road. So I'm going to come along here because besides those that Mace petrol and the petrol station, the Seaways Cafe, there used to be a butcher's here that was open in 2016, and now I think that when I passed through here in 2018 it had closed down. It has been now turned into part of a house, and so that's where we're going along here. There's a sign over here, just there, and you'll see the illustrious myself here looking extremely happy, having completed the end of one day of the Wolds way around here. So as it says there, it's 39 miles from Hessel, and to Fileybrigg it's 40 miles. So just, like I say, another half mile further along there. Where I am, and don't normally appear in these photographs, but is straight opposite is the gate for the church. And this is what's so hard to see, is that you can't see, that's a church there behind it, but due to this sort of garage here and this building here, because the first time I went in 2016, I couldn't find the church and there was nobody around to ask. And so I came back again, I think the following year, to take that. So I'll just show you the bit of film first so you can see where I've come through to and where this church gate is. It's accessible from where this tree is down the other side, and that's where I turned the corner to park the car. So let's have a look. So this is St Mary, because it's a 12th century church, thought to have been built around about 1130, the body of the church. The date on here is 1190 when the tower was built, so just slightly after the main body of the church was built. It's open all the time, apart from at the moment, I have to say. But it's worth coming, even if you're over here, it's coming to either down either of these paths that lead to it, to look at here, because the first time I came to take photographs of it, I didn't see this, because I came down the main path and went straight into the church. And no doubt I probably walked around the outside and not looked up at the tower, because this is a clock, which has the most interesting thing on, very cheerful saying it's got on. It's time is short, eternity is long. And we see that it's quite a recent one as well, 1903, the date of that clock on there as well. I'm going to say, if you go inside, it's a lovely sort of Norman church on the inside. Even going through the door, we've got this sort of zigzag patterning of that time along it. Probably circa, I'm going to say 1130, 1140 round here. It has been modernised, beautified by the Victorians, but not too badly. This was done by Hodgson Fowler. We've met him a few times already. And you can't see from this photograph really what he did. He added the north aisle over here, which is sort of in keeping with the rest of the church. He's kept the Norman chancel here as well. And you can see down here, this the partition across here, that was added by him in the 1890s as well. And it was paid for by Sir Tatton Sykes. That probably will be the second of Sledmere House, probably one of these later churches to restore. And if you go into the chancel itself, it's got this rather large wooden triptych behind the altar. That was bought over from Sledmere House in, say, 1902 as well. Probably carved maybe specifically for this, because the actual carving of it is dated 1895. So it is a fairly modern work, because you see, I haven't got a photograph of it, I took it at a funny angle, but you can say it is rather large and elaborate there, but it is, you can say, a fairly modern piece of furniture in there. But you can say the lovely chancel arch isn't, again, the same styling, but it's got on the doorway into the church as well. And also look up here as well, it's also, the plaster's been removed from this. It wasn't by Hodgson Fowler, so perhaps in dampness and things like that, it actually fallen off the wall. But a bit is left up there, and I think it's a bit from a psalm or something like that. And there's another bit on one of the arches as well. But as I say, there's not really much to look at. So I'm looking down the other way now, down to the tower base as well. Quite interesting to see on these arches here, obviously, but they're pointed here, but it's how short the bases are to them to hold them up. So it's all relatively small. And I think that's the thing about it when you go to a church, why you can't really see it is because it's very small altogether in height and in width. You can see just there is the bit that Hodgson Fowler added on into the north aisle. All this wood around here he added as well at that same period, and I guess he installed the pews along here at the same time, because there's some highly polished Victorian pews around here. So because there's these small clerestory windows up here which add light into it as well, and they've got quite nice, because they've got sort of bits of stained glass, and there are angels in those as well, because they're quite hard to photograph and quite hard to see, and that's what's up there. This stained glass again is Victorian, that was put in. This is by Burlinson and Grills, who are a London-based stained art studio, probably known to Hodgson Fowler, probably how they got the job. I must say it hasn't weathered very well. It's lost quite a lot. This is the best of them as well. The others, I could say, whether they've not coated them properly or they've used some other type of methods for stained glass. But you can see up here, to say that they're only sort of 1890, 1900, is that they've lost a lot of their detailing up here as well. Because it seems to be all right with the dark blues and the blacks, but they can say the more finer drawing that has been painted onto it seems to have disappeared, because that's the best example of it. At the back end of the tower, the font there, that's Norman as well. So let's leave the church because it's well worth a visit, because it's just really just off that road, but you got to know that it's there, that church. As I mentioned before on that map, the road where I went down to park the car to visit the church, that goes down to Burrdale. That's at the sort of right in the centre of the Dales, and Burrdale is where the road from Warren Percy goes over to, or drops down to, and then you can turn right to Thixendale, or you can go elsewhere in the Wolds. But if you head straight ahead, that's this is the road there that takes you down to Thixendale. It's fairly flat to begin with, and as it approaches the valley, it drops very steeply. There's a photograph later on that I've taken from that location, but it's a very narrow road, and so you need to go around about now to get that view that looks down onto Thixendale due to the sort of tree growth around that area. But we're going to go, the path follows along here. It's got one of those braziers here as well, and it brings you out by ABN, the footpath does. That's the road that goes down to Thixendale, so you can see where it is. I'm not quite sure when this was built, but I think it's about 2010, 2011. They're sort of quite an international company. I don't know what the ABN stands for. They don't tell you on their website at all. But the processing here is feed for the pig and poultry industry. It's quite surprising. I think it's about probably the only industrial building we actually see on the Wolds of this scale. This is a path that goes across there, and quite surprisingly, where their road comes in from the A166 must be the only zebra crossing that there is on the Wolds, and in a very surprising way as well. You can see here path leading on and crossing these fields, and we always say about the big skies of the Wolds, largely because there's no impediments and there's no cities, high-rise buildings or anything like that. Maybe that gives the vistas, and these large fields as well. It's taken, I think, September the 5th or the 11th or something like that of last year, and it's an absolutely fantastic day with those clouds. The path goes down here, and then it's going to bring us into Burbberdale. So we can see where we've come already. That's ABN then, and coming to the top of Burbberdale. What I like about these dales is that you can see right across them, and if you stood here, you really wouldn't know that there's a dale straight beneath you. And that's what the surprise about these ones are. And again, when we come to Thixendale as well. So this is what we get with Burbberdale. I have no idea what it means, and like I said, I've checked down it. But again, all these dales, I guess, is that the farmers have created these slopes down here for their agricultural machinery to come up and down. But it's the fact is that you can look straight down into them. There's a sheep at the bottom, and because they always call it sometimes upside down farming, where the fields on the top and the cattle and the sheep and sometimes horses on the bottom around here. So that's only about a 10-minute walk from the centre of Fridaythorpe to Burbberdale. So we're going to come down this slope here. There's a bit of a chalk quarry there. I have no idea what they're using it for, probably for grinding up to put on to improve the land as well. And that's looking back from the top of the slope. This goes all the way round, and it goes right up and ends at the A166. Unfortunately, there's no path down here from them, but when we come to look at Thixendale itself, the next dale further over, there are numerous paths that you can park to on the A166 and walk down into this area around here. But like I say, that ends in a very steep point, climbing up right to the edge of the A166, but just before you approach Fridaythorpe itself. So you can actually look down that top edge if you know really where to look. But I guess your eyes are always going straight forwards and not to the left and to the right. The path comes down across here. Burbberdale continues forwards along here, but the path comes up over here. There's an acorn there, again, giving the distances across to Filey. It's 44 miles from here as well. So I'm coming across here, then going up there, which is called Cowdale Leas. And you can see a lovely sort of avenue of trees that they've planted down here. Cowdale Leas, as Leas normally signifies, it's a field. That's at the top. and that's what you get the view across there as well. Like I said, the views are so magnificent around here, but it's, you say, go on a good day, and that's the type of that you get. I hadn't planned to go when the weather was good, but it just fixed in when we could meet up and walk around on this area as well. The path then comes out to meet another lane. This is called Petham Lane, and it's you go off it on a very minor crossroads on the A166. If you're heading towards Fridaythorpe, it's a right-hand turn that takes you to Huggett, or left brings you down Petham Lane. This, it's a very minor crossroads, and to the right it goes, you can go across to Water and to Millington as well. And this is another high level road that goes right across the tops of really between Burbberdale and Thixendale. Thixendale is, you can't see it here, but it's just there. So you can cross to the fields the other side. And this road comes out at the head of Thixendale as well. It comes down adjacent to the road from Fridaythorpe. So that's where you can actually drive along here. I'd say it has better views along here than the one from Fridaythorpe has. But I say you've got to be notable for where it is, because it is just a lane. So coming down here, and just as we're going to approach, this is what they call Thixendale, and you see a number of other dales come off there, because this is where the water has swirled around and come down here. We've got Wormdale here, because we've got Saff Breckenholme Dale over here, and these very small ones here where the water is sort of swished around. I can see where we come over here, Cowdale Leads, where the meltwater would have washed down that valley where we came up from Burbberdale. That's Gill's farm there. It's just a large farmhouse and yard around there, and I think they always have very large machinery around here because the fields are so large. So this is where we're coming now, across here to the top of Thixendale Wold, or we're actually on Thixendale Wold. I actually met a couple of people here. In fact, met 4 people here. The 2 people you can just see there on the skyline, they'd come from south of the Humber Bridge, and they were doing a Thixendale round, walking from Fridaythorpe to Thixendale and coming back on this route. Another couple behind, you can't see, they came with some dogs. Again, they were walking that same round as well. So you can make up sort of various walks around here if you don't want to walk the whole way. So where these people are just there is something that was being placed here in 2019 and called the dew ponds. It just shows what type of sort of insects are attracted to these. And it's again, same like the pond, I think I mentioned it before, the clay lined in order to catch rainwater, sleet, snow, I guess, and dew from the overnight as well. I think one farmer's probably allowed it here, but the dew pond is actually the other side of the fence. So whether the other farmer didn't want it next to his pond, which is literally only sort of 25 foot away or something, but that's where you see the dew pond here. Straight below there, that is Thixendale, and you say that's why you can't really see these valleys by looking across. And similar to Burbberdale, you got that huge vista looking straight down onto the valley. We're coming down here, that's a signpost down there, because you can walk up Wormdale, which is that hidden valley going up there. You can actually walk up this valley here and over there, and the A166 is right on the top over there, because it's slightly hidden from view, but that's where it is. And you can park it up there. There's a I guess a bit of a picnic spot, probably the old part of the A166 that you can pull off, and it's on your right hand side if you're going towards Fridaythorpe. You can park your car there, and there are actually 2 routes down, because the paths are nearly enough adjacent to one another on the opposite side of the road from there, and that can bring you down this dale down here, or you can come round here and come down Wormdale. So you can actually make circular walks from round here. It changes its name here. This is actually Thixendale, as I've written there, coming down here, changes its name right here in the middle. The top part of that is called Bradenham Dale, and they say they're rather like sort of, I guess, split lizards' tongues. These are, where they're sort of all coming all over the place into different points. So I'm coming down here because, like I say, along with that Fridaythorpe bus shelter, we've added a number of art installations along here. This is one of them down here. I thought it was a maze, but it's actually something called Waves and Time. We'll see this on the next photograph, but you can see here the public rights of way around here. And we're going to go straight ahead because that's where Thixendale goes. Well, where you walk to Thixendale, you double back on yourself down there. But this is Waves and Time by a chap called Chris Drury, a place here in 2012. It looks like a circular maze, and I'd suggest that it probably needs a good looking after. If you look on the website, when it first opened, it was a perfect turf maze, whereas it's quite hard to see now, and obviously perfectly mowed and things like that, slightly overgrown now. But like I say, there are things along the Wolds Way along here. So now we're going to come out, follow the Wolds Way up again to meet the road that comes down really from the top of Garraby Hill, where it meets the Roman Road. We'd met the Roman Road before when we come across Millington. The Romans came across to Brough, and when they got to sort of the Pocklington area around there, Market Wheaton, is that the road split. One went across towards York and the other went across to Malton, where they had a fortress around there. We saw it, or didn't see it, but it followed across Millington Dale, then comes across here, runs just off this map here, but runs across the top of the map. And I said, this is where you come down here. That's where the Robert Fuller's gallery is here at Foverdale Farm. So you can see where I'm coming out here to join the road and to go to Thixendale itself. So lovely, and another lovely part of this valley as well. We get these avenues of trees, and it might be down here where, like, I think Robert Fuller has some sort of live cams where he's sort of put these cameras in bird boxes and other things like that, because in these trees down here there's quite a lot of sort of large triangular structures, which I guess are nesting boxes for owls and other things like that, and that perhaps where he might have some of his cameras that he sort of broadcasts to people who look at sort of wildlife on the Wolds. So this is a lovely sort of avenue of trees down here. To the right, we've got another, like I say, side valley coming down here, where again there's sort of perfectly formed, like I say, this sort of water swirling around here to create these lovely curves, and like I say, the very flat bottoms of them as well. From there, we start to meet the farmer's track around here. The farmer is actually in his tractor down there. He comes from Manor Farm, which is right at the end of Thixendale. We'll see that on a photograph as well. And unfortunately for us, he was spreading manure on these fields. He was having his lunch as well, so I went and had a word with him to see what sort of farming they did around here. Quite interesting and quite unexpected as well is that they'd just finished growing peas around here. Peas which were frozen by Bird's Eye in Hull. They have very strict regulations on when to plant the peas, because they don't want a glut of them all at the same time, because they overrun the freezer factory in Hull. I think they might have another one on the north side of the on the North Lincolnshire as well. From picking the peas here, they've really got a 2-hour time span in order to get from here to Hull to be frozen within that time. He was telling us this year it had gone slightly wrong. I think there'd been some equipment malfunction in the freezer factory, and that if the peas are left outside and aren't processed within that 2-hour band, they're not grade A peas, and they become they get a different grade after that. He said the peas that he'd harvested here had been held up, and they were now a different grade, and they couldn't be sold in Britain, but they were going to be sold in Italy. So he told me. So it's quite surprising. Peas grown on the Wolds round here. He was then manuring it and then about to seed wheat down here as well. So it's a winter wheat. It said it would just pop through in late October, lie dormant, and probably around about now, going into February, that would come through. So you get an early crop of wheat, which enabled him then to put in peas after that. So you can get a rotation 2-crop system out of these fields along the valley bottom. He said also because these, because it's sort of a lot of soil has been washed down from the other slopes, it's the better quality of the fields they have down here. Whereas he said he couldn't grow peas on higher up on there because of the amount of chalk in it as well. So those are the pea fields next to the road. This is a road that comes down here that leads from Robert Fuller's gallery slightly higher up, leads down to Thixendale. That's where his tractor was here. So that's a track that had walked along. It doesn't continue funnily along as Thixendale along there. That changes its name here to Longdale for reasons unknown, but Thixendale curves round here and then curves again to the left to go down to where the village is. There's another dew pond down here as well, but this is Robert Fuller Gallery up here at Fridaythorpe farm that stands up there. So you can say it's probably from there, probably about half a mile up there, but it's probably about a couple of miles, what I say, from the Roman road, the one going on top of Garraby Hill that leads towards Malton, that goes through Alsleby and other places that we probably haven't heard of. So that road goes right across the top, further beyond those trees over there. But this is the Robert Fuller Gallery. He Fridaythorpe Farm. He opened this in 1998. Normally open 9:30 till 4:30, and at weekends 10:30 to 4:30. He was born in 1972 and has lived in this area previously at Great Givendale. That's on the other side of the A166, above Bishop Wilton. And like I say, he's opened this gallery 1998. And he specialises, as you can see behind him here, in sort of very lifelike animal and bird photographs here as well. Here are some fighting hares, which are fairly typical of the Wolds lands as well. So moving down to the hill from where we came off this road, the road comes down here. That's where the farmer's tractor was in a previous photograph I'd taken from up here. So this is the road that's that road that comes off the A166. Did I call it Pethworth Lane? That's what comes down here very steeply. This is the road from Fridaythorpe that comes down very steeply, because the viewpoint is round about there, and that's the view that you tend to get looking down Thixendale. The other view you tend to get of Thixendale, which I've taken right at the end, is from this vantage point up here, where the Wolds Way climbs Beamer Hill and goes across there towards Warren Percy. That's about 3 miles away from here as well. There's also got a pub here which is slightly hidden from view, and I guess at one time it would have been sort of on the road side that led into Thixendale, but as we'll see, they built quite a lot of modern housing. So that's the road that comes down, Pethworth Lane, that comes down from the A166. The other one comes out just where those white arms are, and so all these sort of roads meet together. Must say these ladies are of a certain age, and there are all lady cyclists, and they're about to go up that very long hill up by Robert Fuller's studio. And I guess the only way they can go is up right to the top of Garraby Hill. So that's we're going to move further along here now. And as I mentioned before, that's that view you get from the Fridaythorpe Road looking down. Like I say, you've got to take it in sort of February, March, April before the trees come into view. This is the photograph taken in 2016, where you can see they're building these modern houses along here. So it's actually got a growing population around here. Not as large as it was in the 1870s. That had Thixendale then had a population of 550. Its lowest population was actually in the late 1950s, early 1960s, when it fell to 160 people. Today, it's 300 and rising because of the new housing that they've built in here. And that's really what's hidden the pub from view. The pub is actually here, which is again a bit unusual because it's not actually on the main street at all. It's on a very narrow street, comes down here, which makes it a bit awkward to park, and it also makes it awkward for people looking for the pub who don't know where it is, and that's part of the problem. Very small, as you can see, just pointing out from up here some of the buildings we're going to look at. There's the church there, which just stands back from the main road passing through it. That's the former school, which is now a village hall. And that chap who was farming those pea fields, Manor House Farm, is this farm here. He was complaining is that it seems a bit of a magnet, Thixendale is, for walkers. And I can understand probably why, because they can walk up here, go across fairly easily to Warren Percy and then return back again. Largely because sometimes the Warren Percy car park is very full. So people opting to choose that as a routeway means that he was saying during the summer of this year, so many people had come in to walk around here, he couldn't get his tractor down here with his equipment on the side of it because of the road being so narrow along here. He doesn't mind the visitors, but as long as they parked, because they probably get fined nowadays, as long as they're parked on the pavement to give him that width of road to come down here. So let's look down Thixendale. Whoops. That's the start of the main street. So that's where all these roads are generally meeting. So Thixendale isn't really on the main valley road. This is a valley road that goes across here that goes down to Burrberdale. And that's where I'll pick up on Wednesday, is looking down at Burrberdale and going across that way. And so we're coming down here. These are the housing. This was taken in September of last year. So we can see that there's some more modern housing on here and that it's being completed. And to the right of there, this is this very narrow lane that leads down to the Cross Keys pub down here. So most of these lands around here belong to sort of St Mary's Abbey at York and Kirkham Abbey on the top side of the Wolds on the sort of A64. And in the late 18th century, the lands around here were bought by the Sykes family of Sledmere House. We didn't actually own them that long because they sold some of the lands off in 1919 and the rest of the village that hadn't been sold off in 1941. So there's really no connection with that. But at the time that we see here is that it did belong to the Sledmere estate, and the Tatton Sykeses, who built and restored churches right across the Wolds, they actually built one here. This was done by the architect of this was the Essex-born George Edmund Street. He built this 1868 to 1870. Because he died in 1881. He learnt his trade under Sir George Gilbert Scott. He not only designed the church, but he designed the vicarage, which actually stands next door, but slightly back. And he also designed, as you can see here, the school stroke village hall as well. So you can go into this if it's open. It wasn't open in September, so it was locked, but it's fairly plain on the inside. Like I say, it's fairly small as well, so that the Tatton Sykes didn't go all out on this one like he has done on some of the other ones, especially the one at West Heslington, which is even smaller village. That's on the A64 that goes out to Scarborough and doesn't even lie on the road, which now belongs to the one of the church trust, Churches Conservation Trust. This one is still active here as well, because it's very small, quite plain on the inside. The next building along, I think he put probably a bit more effort into this than usual. It looks like probably been a cheaper build as well, but using red brick. But look at the sort of design he's put on here as well. The little steeple on top of the, I guess it would have been sort of the school. This probably was the schoolmaster's house, and this is the school attached to it as well. This property here remains a house, but what was the school has been converted into a village hall around here as well. It's actually open sometimes at a weekend, and they serve teas within it, but obviously not at the moment. But this one's still open, which is the village shop. And I was quite surprised to find there was one here. But when I was researching last time for information around here, is that I could get a book on the High Wolds, which includes sort of Fridaythorpe and these other villages around here. And the lady told me that it was available at the village shop. So I've actually been in here. It was quite an amusing experience as well, because it's really in a sort of, I wouldn't call it a conservatory, but I'd probably call it more of a lean-to shed down the side of here. It's fairly well stocked. There's a bloke in there, and I said, I've come to buy this book. And he looked at me and said, no, lad, we haven't got anything like that here. And then he shouted through to the back room or to the lounge or something like that to his wife. And she said it was on the top shelf. Probably not one of those top shelf books, but there it was. But unfortunately, he's died since then. And the farmer told me that she's running that on her own. And maybe that when she's gone, they will no longer have a village shop in here, which is a shame, really, because I guess in the summer season, it's probably quite well used by visitors coming along here, because the next shop will be at Fridaythorpe, 3 miles away, or going down to perhaps the farm shop down at Sledmere or something like that. So quite a distance away, really. So it does have its own facility down there. And of course, at the other end, it's got its pub as well. So let's sort of come to the end of this. We're going to say one of my shorter ones today. But like I say, there are in the village hall, that's the old schoolhouse, there's quite a lot of signage around here to the history of the area. But largely it was an agricultural village. And so it was all based around that. So it's sort of, with a blacksmith shop and all of its other things which have now gone. And again, sort of a lovely thatched cottage there, one of the few that remains on the Wolds as well, Hillfoot Lodge. So we're coming really to the end of the village. That thatched house is just down there. And so you can say it's from one end to the other end is probably less than 10 minutes walk. This is Manor House Farm round here. The actual Manor House, like I say, it's a fine sort of late 18th century building. It's used as a bed and breakfast now for people walking on the Wolds Way and others. So this is a track up Beamer Hill that leads across to Warren Percy. It was very important for the villagers around here because before this church opened in sort of 1870, is that the parish church for the area was the church at Warren Percy. That's the one that sort of seemingly looks redundant, and I mentioned that about a month or so ago, but it actually didn't become redundant until 1949, and it only looks more redundant than it does today because the part of the tower fell down in 1959. That was the importance of this track of going across to Warren Percy. That's where they had to go on a Sunday for burials and for weddings and such like along there. So Thixendale, which is it's called down here, both the dale and the village, continues down there, but it doesn't continue forwards. The road continues forwards, and that goes down Waterdale, and that's what I'll be following on that the next bit of film along here. Waterdale ends up on the it rises out, and it's really at the escarpment edge of the Wolds. It drops down to Burbberdale, which is an estate village. I think they've been filming some films out there in this past year that are probably on television at the moment. I can't remember the name of it. So you can drop down to Burbberdale, or you can take a very minor road that takes you over to Warhamler Street. That's the main road from Malton across to Wetwang. But Thixendale itself, say, turns again, and that's what we're looking at down here. Like I say, it twists again and eventually comes to an end in these trees over there. So I can say from where I met it at the valley bottom, it's probably technically probably about 4 miles long, but I'd say it's made up of all sorts of different dales as well. Waterdale, which I'm going to go along in my car, is one of those classic Wolds scenery roads. I mentioned before, going down Millington Dale is a lovely one, and this one, I say, is just as good. In fact, it's longer than Millington Dale, and when I drove down this on that lovely day, I didn't meet a car. I think there's one motorcyclist I might have passed. But really, if you go down there, is that you really need, unless you're going to drop down to Birdsall, like I did, I turned around at the junction, came back up so I can go down to Burrdale and to other places in the Wolds. Otherwise, it's taking you out of the Wolds going down there. So let's have a look at this last Peter film. I'm going to say it's 5 or 6 minutes long as well. So I'm going to pick it up where I was just down from Robert Fuller's studio, where I'd met the tractor where the pea fields are. So that's where I'm picking it up from. And then you'll see the roads coming down from the A166, the road coming down from Fridaythorpe, and then I'm going to turn down into Thixendale and then follow the village through right along Waterdale. So the road ahead when I turn into it goes down to Burrdale. the main road continues, like I say, down to Birdsall off the escarpment edge, and at the top of the rise, when it comes out of trees, it can go across to Warham the Street. So that's the end of today's. I've made it in an hour.